A third of the world's land surface is covered by forests. Experts say keeping them healthy is important when it comes to fighting the negative effects of climate change. So is planting trees the way to go? And how easy a solution is it? We take a look in this episode of Sustainable Energy. I'm Asha Sampath in Vancouver on Canada's Pacific coast to look at ways we can make our cities greener. The world's urban population is expanding, and with it the demand for energy and resources. This also means more buildings and more pollution. But scientists say that trees can reduce carbon emissions and help us save energy as well. The FAO, the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization, is encouraging cities to invest in forest-based solutions to make them more sustainable. I've come here at the University of British Columbia to meet Professor Cecil Konynendijk, who leads a course on urban forestry. I'll ask him how urban forestry is taking root, where should all the trees go, and who will pay for them. We'll hear from him throughout today's show. So sit back and relax and let us plant the seed on how nature-based solutions such as planting trees can help the planet. Coming up on this episode, we take you through some facts and figures that show you how urban forestry could help solve cities' pollution problem, something we all care about. In India, we visit a company on a mission to bring back the country's lost forests using car manufacturing techniques.
We replaced the cars with trees, and we could generate a list which would tell us how many numbers of each species you should plant in a sequence and what should that sequence should be.
We meet the architect who created a vertical forest in Milan and is now taking the idea to Shanghai.
Vertical forest is a very simple thing. It's a way to concentrate in a very small urban surface, thousands of plants.
Before I meet Professor Cecil Konynendijk, let's get you up to speed on what you need to know about city living today and show you why you should care.
More than half of the world's population lives in urban areas, a trend that looks set to continue. The UN predicts nearly 70% of us will be city dwellers by 2050. Jobs and new opportunities lure people to cities, but as the population increases, more infrastructure is needed to cope, and that puts a strain on our planet. According to the European Forest Institute, cities consume 2/3 of the world's energy and create 2/3 of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. Does this mean the urban world is doomed to become an asphalt jungle? Maybe not, as there's a nature-based solution right under our noses: trees.
The key benefits of having trees in cities: 1, they cool them down. 2, trees absorb particulates, so they really help with pollution. And then there are also just the public health benefits, which have to do with reducing stress, increasing ability to pay attention to what goes on around you, and just generally raising your level of happiness.
And it's not just trees on the ground. A US government report shows that widespread implementation of green roofs can cut indoor energy consumption by 7 to 10% per year. Going green in our cities isn't just good for us, it's also good for wildlife. 20% of all known bird species are also city dwellers, and urban forests provide them with much needed shelter. But scientists are calling on local governments to do more.
The way this seems to work is either you have a very smart and enlightened set of city leadership, or you have activist citizens who come to city government and begin to apply pressure.
The UN is now actively creating forests in 90 cities across 30 countries in Africa and Asia. They plan to cover 500,000 hectares of land with new urban forests by 2030. Their goal? If well managed, the forests should cut the risk of flooding and heat waves, improve air quality, and halt land degradation in the ever-expanding urban environment.
Professor Cecil Conidine-Dyke, thank you for joining us on sustainable energy. We are on your turf here at the University of British Columbia, where you lead a course on urban forestry leadership. Yeah. You've been all around the world to talk about your passion. But first, tell us a little bit about this place.
So here we're at the student lounge at UBC's Faculty of Forestry, which is one of the leading faculties of forestry in the world. But what's really great about it is actually we're doing urban forestry here. So even here you see we have trees inside our building.
Many big cities in North America, Europe, Australia and parts of Asia are covering their lands with trees. So which one are leading the way and which one should do more?
So it's really nice to see that many cities are taking this very seriously. A city like Melbourne realized that trees are an essential way of keeping your city livable and also adapting it to climate change. So they really integrated into urban forestry into their development, one can say. But also Beijing in China, that has over the last years planted millions and millions of trees, 50 million over 3 or 4 years. To places like Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, that now realize that they need trees to cool down the city, to provide people with recreational opportunities. So there's a lot of cities, I think, across the world that are taking this very seriously and are doing a good job. But of course, some cities are faced with challenges. They don't have the planning capacity. They don't have the money, the capacity to really work on this. So we see, for example, in Africa, other parts of the world, maybe Latin America, cities are growing very rapidly. India is adding another 200-300 million urban dwellers. So how do you get your cities ready for that, and how do you integrate trees in that? That's a big challenge. So Singapore is another example where actually trees are taken very seriously, and they're trying to imitate forest environments along streets these days, which is, I think, a very fascinating approach to urban forestry.
But tell me, how can trees reduce carbon emissions, save energy and make cities more sustainable as well? What is the process?
So trees, of course, capture carbon. So that's one important part of fighting climate change. But the main thing that trees do actually, they help cool the city. So by cooling the city, we know that there's less need, for example, for air conditioning costs, etc. So trees are really contributing in many ways to adapting our cities to climate change.
And can tree planting programs work everywhere? What about developing countries in Africa, India or Latin America, for example, you know, where they might have less access to funding opportunities?
Definitely. I think tree planting can work everywhere. You probably have a different context, different challenges, and it will be more difficult maybe in some places. But when communities get together and engage around, for example, fruit trees, urban agriculture, maybe even producing energy wood, well, fuel wood, I think there are definitely opportunities there. And we see that happening also across the global south these days. So I'm hopeful, but there's often a lack of capacity and maybe planning approaches to support that.
Thank you, Professor. We've got to take a break, but up next, we head to India to meet a company that is replenishing lost forests using a system based on Japanese car manufacturing.
Within 2 years, this forest becomes self-sustaining. It conserves its own water, it takes moisture from the air, it produces its own food.
Still watching? Perfect. Click here to watch another great video from CNBC International. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.